have way more energy than just one thing, which is always going to come through. I think this is a perfect time to talk about Mercury, because we've already been talking about your Gemini rising, which leads us right into this idea. Well, if you have Mercury in Cancer, kind of what's your learning style? How do you think? What's your perception? What's sort of your view of, with Mercury, I think, how am I making sense of this moment? How am I adding things up in whatever the situation is? And my one thing with Mercury in Cancer, which I have Mercury in Cancer, is that it's a lot of emotional thinking and emotional sense making, or maybe nonsense making, for I say for myself a lot of the time. Right? The thinking is very, if you have Mercury in Cancer, it's very intertwined with feeling. And the actual communication, you have Mercury in Cancer too, right? So here's what you will see from both of us, and we're doing it now. There's a lot of feeling in what we communicate. Neither one of us would be comfortable sitting and talking sort of regimented about something. If we don't feel it, we're kind of out of it. At least for myself, that's how it is.
Yeah.
How does it feel for you?
Very similar. I mean, I would agree with that. And I wish I could hide and not have my feelings be expressed in my words. I wish it would. I feel like with Mercury in Cancer, it is obvious what somebody could ask you, how's your day going? And it'd be like, fine. You're like, there's no way you can actually conceal.
I'm okay.
I think there's also some type of, because Mercury is, it is associated with, right? Like communications, etc. I think it's also very mental connections. Mercury is how the mind puts things together and just connects the dots. It's just an energetic function of connecting the dots between this and that, right? Like it has this curious function. Yeah. So I am always curious about how people feel. Yeah. I am always curious about how people survive, which is another Cancerian expression trait. It's about survival. It's about getting your nest egg together. I think also my experience, I think Cancer, a mercurial Cancer, is also very sensitive to words.
Ooh, sensitive to words. That's so true. Yeah. My partner all the time is like, it's just a word, Tara. It's just a word, I'm gone. You know what I mean? Like I'm in the whole tumble process of what that person just said and what it meant and how I feel about it now. It's spot on. For me. I wonder if any of the rest of you feel that way, if you're sensitive to words or to communication, or what about even to body language?
Absolutely. Well, because it's the unsaid emotional language, the unsaid emotional expression, and not just emotional, just all express. Like, Mercury in Cancer is like, what did you really mean? What do you really mean behind that?
Yeah, what's the story, right? So Mercury's about story, but Cancer is so attached to our story too. So we put those together, and I think there's a lot of what's the actual story here. And for most of us, the story that we remember, right, from our youth or from things that happened, it's emotional, right? It's not factual. What do you though think as far as, I think people with Mercury and Cancer oftentimes have a real beautiful ability to communicate things in a way that people can feel them.
Absolutely. That is, an absolute gorgeous trait of Mercury in Cancer. And like we were talking about, you can't hide it, right? Like and people are so really, Mercury in Cancer words reverberate.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about in another episode, Cancer is infinite. So Cancer lives in multiple timelines. I think you can say the same for perhaps all of the water element signs in different ways. But like with Cancer, there is this infinite depth and Mercury in Cancer, infinite depth in expression. You feel it in your marrow when the words come out.
You feel it in your soul. It's a heart and soul. I think all the water, but I always feel that when you say of Mercury, like what's the language, right? Because Mercury is also about translation, how we translate things. And with Cancer, it's translating the things that are beyond words, which is the language of the heart and the soul. So you see this come through sometimes in music or art in different ways. It's not always in something, you know, written or spoken, although it can be. It can come through other mediums as well, because to me, Cancer is so linked into those archetypes, right? Those things that we all share, that we all go through in our own way. So there can be a real sense when you are with someone who is working well with or expressing well their Mercury in Cancer, of feeling at home. They speak your language.
Yep.
Or they're able to adapt to speak your language so you feel at home, which sometimes is just simply changing how I'm sitting, or being closer or further away, or I lean in, right? But those are all things to me that different people feel at home or comfortable with different things. And we talked about the comfort level of Cancer.
Yeah.
So it's there too.
It's always seeking, really, the energetic expression of Cancer in any form is seeking comfort. It's seeking security. And so we're seeking security in language. We're seeking security in a connection, in ideas. So I think Mercury in Cancer also is very much like maybe what people would think of in a 7th house expression of what the 7th house does, which is like, you know, can we find, like, where are you feeling comfortable? It's not exactly like the 7th house. I think I was thinking more kind of like Mercury in Cancer considers what is being said, how it's landing. What does this make you feel safe or not, or vice versa?
What's interesting is that does have a Libra 7th house connection, which is funny that they're square. So there's difference in how they do it, but there's a similarity there. There's a consideration for how someone else is feeling. Now, I think Cancer takes things more personally. At least that's in my experience. Sometimes that there is a more well, in my personal experience, a lot of, this is just for me, for Tara, but I think I'm probably not the only one with all my Cancer placements. A lot of what I'm working through is seeing my kind of old patterns of less developed ways of being able to hold my own self and my own emotional security. And the more I'm able to do that, the more I'm able to do that for others. I'm saying I don't think it always comes naturally out the gate, but the potential is absolutely there. And honestly, Cancer doesn't want itself or anyone around it to feel bad.
Yeah.
Like that's a sensitivity to, if at least in my experience, when someone feels bad around me, I then feel bad. Now we can say that's selfish, and there is a selfish element to that, right? And so I always put the pause on these conversations with myself when I find myself trying to make someone feel better, because sometimes we just need to feel shitty. So, I mean, seriously, sometimes we just need to feel what we feel. And I know that with Cancer, there is a real sensitivity to that hurting. And so it's an interesting balance between, is it really helpful to help someone feel better, or do I just need to make you feel better because I feel uncomfortable with you not feeling good, right? And then the cycle goes around.
Wow, that's so interesting. We can, like, totally, I feel, loop off and just talk about the distinctions between all the squares, which is like the different cardinal expressions, the different fixed expressions, the different mutable expressions, because they're all connected. Like, it's crazy. You can't just read something isolated in a chart.
It's all one animal. It's like you can't just rip off its legs, you know? I mean, that's like the thing. Like it's all functioning together.